Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm making this video primarily for one of my subscribers, Robin, who emailed me with a question about books on Armenia and Lebanon and other countries in the Middle East. So I wanted to make this primarily for Robin, but obviously for everyone else too. I'm going to go through a little bit of a book tour, if you will, of books I've read or have in my possession that I'm planning on reading, because I have a habit of buying books faster than I actually read them. To talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I have heard of or know about or have read. So that's what I'm going to do now. So first, I'm going to go through some books that I've read and then talk about some ones that I have. This is by far my favorite book that I've read on the Middle East. It's called The Great War for Civilization, The Conquest of the Middle East by Robert Fisk. It is quite thick. It is a very, very, very long book, but despite its length, it is one of the easiest books I have ever read. Robert Fisk is a British journalist who lived in Lebanon for a great majority of his life, and still lives there actually, and has seen a lot of the conflict firsthand, not just in Lebanon, but also in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria, Egypt, a whole bunch of different conflicts, Israel and Palestine, and is able to talk about all of these historical stuff that still very much plays a role in our world today from a first-hand perspective and very much from a journalist's perspective. And he talks a lot about the ethics of journalism and objective versus subjective reporting and what does that really mean, and fairness in reporting and all that kind of stuff. So it is fascinating to read, and definitely a very, very comprehensive book about it. These next three are actually graphic novels, and they're primarily around Arab and Middle Eastern identities. This is Arab in America, so it's an autobiography actually about growing up Arab in America, especially with all the stuff happening post 9/11 also, and the retaliations there. Waltz with Bashir is also on DVD now, and it's actually the next movie that I'll be getting on Netflix, so I'm just waiting on getting that. And this just came out very, very recently. I read it in 10 minutes the second I got it, and almost fell apart because it really hit me hard. It's about an Israeli soldier trying to remember his time in Lebanon and really trying to fill in the gaps in his memory. Persepolis, I know a lot of people have heard of Persepolis. When it came out, it was on DVD and in the theaters. It was really, really popular. It's also a graphic novel in two parts, and that's primarily focused on Iran through the eyes of one girl, through her girlhood and teenagehood, and then womanhood going back to Iran. So it's very fascinating, again, for one person's perspective and look through the history there in Iran during some of the most important parts of history there. Now this is called Food for Our Grandmothers, Writings by Arab American and Arab Canadian Feminists. So it's all written by women. There's actually also a couple of Armenian women here. So it's just short stories, short pieces talking about their connections to their mothers and their grandmothers, to food, because food is very much a huge part of the culture and the making of the food. So that also reflects on the title. It's, read it here, thoughtful and critical, this memorable collection of essays, poems, and recipes by over 40 Arab American and Arab Canadian feminists honors the courage and spirit of Arab women, past, present, and future. So recommendation on that. Now looking at a couple of stuff on Armenian history and Armenia itself. This is a travel book, actually, The Crossing Place, A Journey Among the Armenians, by Philip Marsden. So this was a reflection on his trip through Armenia and all the people that he meets. There's also all these places that he goes to that are historically Armenian. That's pictures from the march to Deir Zor, the desert, during the 1915 genocide. So he talks to a lot of survivors and people who had relatives and ancestors who died in the genocide. And so through his travels, really talks a lot about the genocide too. This is a memoir by an Armenian American, Peter Balakian, Black Dog of Fate. So this is his personal memoir, growing up Armenian in the U.S. and kind of that feeling of being stuck between his family, being old world folks, and then trying to grow up in the U.S. And then coming to terms with being Armenian and picking between. At first, picking between being Armenian or American, and then being able to integrate it more. Actually, another book of his is if you want to look into the history piece of it, is called "The Burning Tigris: The Armenian Genocide and America's Response." So, as the title implies, it really focuses on how the U.S. responded to the Armenian Genocide while it was happening. It's quite a dense book. It's very much a history book, and not as easy to read as Robert Fisk's, for sure. But it, for folks who are really into facts and numbers and that kind of thing, that was very, very comprehensive also, and looks at the irony of the U.S. starting off as one of the most responsive countries when the genocide first started to now becoming really a denialist country and saying that, calling it a genocide is not appropriate and all that stuff. So it's very interesting to look at. Now, this book is not about Armenia. It's a essay/poetry book by Nancy Agabian, who is an Armenian American writer, also queer identified. So always great to support queer identified folks from my various cultures. So definitely recommend that. I was thrilled to find that. This is a book of fiction. Actually, it's by Elif Shafak, who won a Nobel Prize, actually, and was persecuted in Turkey. He's Turkish, for writing this book, The Bastard of Istanbul, centering around a Turkish family, some in Turkey and their son in the U.S., and then there's also an Armenian American family as the other center of the story. And while it's the story itself is fictional, it talks about some of when they meet and their connections, and the genocide comes up in the story, which is why he was persecuted so much in Turkey. So again, I want to support folks who really push against the grain when it comes to issues around the genocide. Now, So I'm going to look at some books that I have right now that I'm planning on reading, but like I said before, haven't had the chance to. Another one on Armenia is, and again written by someone who's Turkish, is Taner Akcam's A Shameful Act, The Armenian Genocide, and the Question of Turkish Responsibility. And just to name another Turkish author who really talks about the Armenian Genocide is Orhan Pamuk. So I recommend these three authors in looking at Turkish history and stuff, because they really challenge their government to take responsibility for their actions. I'm also very much interested in Israel and kind of U.S. role in it, and Jewish American role in Israel and everything that's happening in terms of the conflict with Palestine. So these are books that I've gotten with the intention of reading. This focuses on the Israel lobby and U.S. foreign policy, so basically looking from inside the U.S. outwards around that. This is called Wrestling with Zion, Progressive Jewish American Responses to the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict. And the reason why I really like this book and the existence of books like this is, by the way, edited by Tony Kushner and Alyssa Solomon, is because there is often this misunderstanding and misperception that there is only two sides to this conflict, two sides and two opinions, that all Jews support Israel, and supporting Israel means not supporting Palestine and being against everything that Palestinians stand for, and that there's this monolithic way to be Jewish and to be Israeli, which these folks, and you can see a list of their names very much challenging that notion that there is this monolithic way to be Jewish or Israeli. So I very much appreciate that. So this is going to be part 1. I'm going to continue in a little bit since I'm at 10 minutes. So.